Ford High School Weekly is brought to you by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma.
Welcome to Ford High School Weekly. I'm your host, Deanna Mate. On this week's episode, we have a special treat for you guys. Man, I'm telling you right now, this guy probably knows more about high school sports than I will ever know, and maybe more than anybody in the state. My guy, Don King. Don, how's it going?
Good, Dion. You'll get there someday. You just gotta be about my age, and it'll all soak in by that time.
I can't wait. One of these days I'll be telling some young whippersnappers like, hey, I remember when I was your age and I didn't know nothing between my ears either.
Well, no, you do a great job, and what an honor to be on the show with you for sure. You do a great job. I enjoy watching this every week.
I really appreciate it, especially from you. That means a lot. Well, I mean, for the people who don't know and they aren't aware of why I'm so, honored for you to say that, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you got started in sports broadcasting here in the state of Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting story. I have a sister who is blind, and she's 7 years older than me and went to the University of Tulsa. So we would go to the football and basketball games at TU. This is in the 60s, so it was a great era of TU football and basketball. And I took her to a basketball game. I was about 10 years old, and she would listen to the game with the transistor radio. And the batteries went out one night at the game, and she said, hey, you're going to have to tell me what's going on. The batteries are out on my transistor radio. So I kind of did play-by-play for her at that time, and when we walked out of the building, she said, you're about as good as Lynn Morton, who was the announcer at the time, was my idol. And she said, I think you ought to think about doing that when you grow up. Now, whether she was truthful or not, it kind of lit me up. And I knew what I wanted to do since I was 10 years old. So went to OSU, graduated, went to Ponca City, was 20 years old, got started, still going to OSU, but got started up there in radio. And then came to Tulsa and started in 1980.
Wow, that story is phenomenal. I can't believe that's how you got started. That from a young age, I feel like everybody has a story about how they got started or how they wanted to get into this. And that one, I would have never guessed it.
Yeah, she's very smart, blind, has 3 college degrees, ham radio operator. I could go on and on the next 30 minutes about her, but she's the one that lit the fire and still listens to this day and will send me texts. Hey, you need to watch this word or that word. So she's always behind me and helping me out.
When we come back, Don and I will break down the 6A1 semifinals here on Ford High School Weekly. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. We're discussing last week's semifinal games in 6A1 with sports commentator and legend, Don King. We had some football played last week, and it's that time in Oklahoma. We always look forward to it. Playoff time and time to hand out some gold balls. So, is there a specific semifinal game that kind of caught your attention? I know you worked and called one where you're the voice of the Jenks Trojans. So tell us some about the semifinal games that you got to witness, hear about, and be a part of.
Well, interestingly enough, the Jenks game and the Bigsby rematch, I think turned out about where most people thought it would. It was going to be hard to beat Bigsby 2 times in a 3-week period. Not that Jenks couldn't do it, because they had been playing extremely well the last month. To come from behind against Mustang, their biggest playoff victory, and as far as a comeback goes, and then to beat Bixby a few weeks ago. But the Spartans are really loaded. They've got a quarterback, Connor Kirby, that can run the football. He's worked very hard at throwing the football, and I think that's what gets overlooked. He's such a physical presence running the football that he has thrown the football extremely well the last month or so. I think Bigsby was primed and ready to go. The semifinal game that surprised, I think, almost all of us was Owasso coming out and beating Union like they did, and had to do it in 6 overtimes. But to jump out 13-0 and completely control that first half was very special for them. And they're on a roll. They've won 8 in a row, and you can never count out Bill Blankenship. I mean, we all know the success he's had over the years winning state championships, whether it's been at Union or at Owasso. This will be his third maybe in 6 years, and then winning one at Fayetteville. So you can't count out Blankenship and the Rams, and I think that should be a pretty good game Friday night.
Man, that was the game of a lot of people are saying the game of the century. I mean, 6 overtimes for Union and Owasso. I know you got a chance to call the Jenks and Bixby game, but were you in attendance for that game, or one of the lucky few? And if so, what did you think about it?
Actually, I was going through laryngitis, so I needed to get home and lay low. So I did watch the stream through Union Athletics and enjoyed that. And believe it or not, it's the first time since 1995. So the first time in 27 years, Dion, that Union or Jenks will not be in the 6A finals.
Wow.
That is an historic run, obviously. And so history being made Friday night, it'll be either obviously Owasso or Bixby, and it'll be the first time that Jenks or Union won't be playing in a state championship game.
Man, so now my question is, I mean, Coach Blankenship, former Union coach, now Owasso Rams. Do you think he was aware of that, and it was it a little sweeter beating his former team in the playoffs like that, in that atmosphere and that's on that stage?
Well, I probably so. I think he has been around so long that the Union Owasso, his former school, doesn't. I mean, it's to him, it's probably just another game because he's coached so many years. But I know it has to be big for Kirk Frederick because Coach Fred coached under Coach Blankenship and probably has a little bit more incentive to try to beat him. And Union trying to get back to the championship game, which they had that 15-0 lead last year, and Jenks came back and beat him. And I know for Union, they played so well all season that I think they just went into the game feeling after they'd beaten Owasso pretty soundly the first part of the season. I think the players kind of thought that they were going to go out there and just go through the motions and maybe win the game. And I think it's difficult for 17 and 18-year-olds when you beat somebody like that the first part of the season, that you don't have that feeling that you're not going to go out there and do it again. And it's kind of like, not to switch to another game, but it's kind of like the 4A championship. Wagner and Cushing beat Wagner 42-0 early in the season. So what's to say Cushing doesn't have that overconfidence or looking ahead thinking they've already got the state championship won. But Wagner's played extremely well the last month and a half, and I think that'll be a much better game than what we saw when they played each other earlier in the year.
Man, it really seems like the story for all these games is, are you able to beat a team twice? You saw, Jenks and Bixby face off again, and Jenks wasn't able to get it done. You see Owasso versus Union. Owasso comes in with a little bit more of a chip on their shoulders, so they're able to get the win and have a little bit more left in the tank than Union is late in that matchup. And then this 4A game that you're talking about, Cushing and Wagner. Wagner, a rich football tradition, but Cushing, really took it to him early in the season. How does Wagner, get to that, that second win? Or no, how does Cushing get to that second win against Wagner? And how does Wagner kind of come up with the upset and take Cushing down and win another gold ball for the Bulldogs?
Well, yeah, I think that's a great question. And if you go back to the Jenks-Bigsby game, 28-14 the other day, Jenks led 14-7 after the first quarter. So they made a statement early that they were in the game. However, Bigsby came back to tie it. But to your point, if Wagner can stay in the game like Jenks did in the first two Bigsby matches, Wagner needs to keep the game close through the first half. And if they can do that, they'll put some doubt in Cushing's mind. And Dale Condick, the Wagner coach, Dion, is one of the better coaches, not only in this area, but in the state. I think he gets overlooked sometimes because they're in 4A and they're not in 6A because those coaches get a lot more attention. But Dale Condick is one of the better coaches in the state of Oklahoma. And I know people I've talked to that have talked to Cushing coach Rusty Morgan. He was extremely excited about the playoffs. He thinks his team is really, really good and primed to win their first state championship since 1961. Cushing was very good in the 50s and 60s. They've got a great quarterback. Miss Blaze Berlowitz, who's going to New Mexico State. Camden Crooks, I don't know that he's committed anywhere yet, but he's an outstanding player on both sides of the ball. So I think if Cushing can get off to a good start, put some doubt in Wagner's mind, I think that gives them a big edge there.
When we come back here on Ford High School Weekly, we want to remember the life of J.B. Haney, one of Don's friends and one of his colleagues. We'll be right back here on Ford High School Weekly. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. One of the reasons we wanted to talk to Don King is his special relationship with J.B. Haney, who was a basketball coach, Hall of Famer here in the state of Oklahoma and Tulsa, and had a lot to do with how Cox and high school sports are being televised all over the state. Don, what can you tell us about J.B. Haney?
Well, Coach was one of a kind. He got his money's worth in this lifetime. There's no question. He just turned 89 2 weeks ago. Was not only a Oklahoma high school coach, but a national high school coaches Hall of Fame member as well. Former president of the Oklahoma Coaches Association. I think he was pretty instrumental in starting the Oklahoma Coaches Association. He was one time their president. But he got his first coaching job when he was a senior in high school at Big Cabin. He and a buddy were running around and, not causing any major trouble, but still getting into a little bit of trouble as you would as a kid. And the principal needed a sixth grade basketball coach. So he called JV and his buddy in and he said, "I'll tell you what, you guys need a job after school. So you're going to be our sixth grade basketball coach." So JV actually started his coaching career when he was a senior in high school at Big Cabin and coached sixth grade. That's how he got the bug. And so he realized at that time that that's probably what he was going to want to do, even though he played semi-pro baseball and did some other things before he got into teaching and coaching.
Man, I wonder if he was a man or a zone defense type of guy as a senior in high school.
He was probably man-to-man. They called him Puddin' because he was so small. And he played catcher as in baseball, and I'm sure he was a point guard in basketball. But he was extremely important to girls basketball. He started the Owasso girls program in the early '60s, and so he was a gentleman that was for Title IX long before there was even a hint at Title IX. He coached at several different spots, obviously Tulsa Edison, Tulsa Webster, had some great teams at Seminole, and not only coached basketball, but coached a lot of other sports, but basketball was primarily his sport. He was also a great bridge, Dion, of starting high school sports as we know it, as you said, here on Cox. In 1985, we did a sports talk show here on Cox Cable during the days, and then JV would fill in as a co-host. So I got to know JV pretty well even before then, but especially when he would come around to do the show with us. And then in 1988, we decided to do high school sports, and that's what the cable system wanted to do. Again, the athletic directors weren't all for it, and JV went to all the schools and said, "You guys, you're missing the boat here. This is a 3-hour commercial for your school. If you are going to miss some attendance, Cox will probably help you with that. But this, you got to look at the large picture," and they did. And so we tape delayed a lot of those games in the late '80s into about the mid '90s, and then started doing the games live. And JB Haney was just a huge part of that. Not just football and basketball. Well, we did all kinds of events. We would do close to 60 events a year during the school year and did all kinds of events. And once he even had the idea of doing a dog show after the Westminster dog show. I think it was JV and Roger Hess had the idea of a dog show with nothing but mutts, no pure breeds in this dog show. And I think the winner got a year's supply of dog food. So JB was pretty innovative when it came to entertainment and certainly bridging the gap between high school sports then and what we know the coverage today. We owe a lot to him for that.
Man, it sounds like I need to thank him for me being able to kind of do this show and being able to broadcast games for Cox. I mean, he was very, very much one of the founding fathers of all this. I can't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that JV I mean, we're great friends throughout the years. But one of the things he taught me at a very early age, Dion, was when he saw a play, and I think I might have criticized the young man. It was in a basketball game, and during the commercial break, he looked at me and he said, "Don't look to criticize the player who might have fumbled the ball out of bounds. Look to the defender who might have caused him to fumble the ball out of bounds. Give credit where credit's due. Don't criticize a high school kid as much as you can compliment the other player on the other side." And that was a tremendous lesson that I always try to teach the people that I help mentor. And it was a great lesson, no question.
Wow, that I feel like I'm in a little, Twilight
You're in,
Zone moment right now
you're in
because
a master class,
that
brother.
was like when I started doing games for Cox. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Mike. It might have been you. It might have been Randy Carson. But somebody told me, make sure when something happens, you don't criticize the kid who it went bad for. Praise the kid who it went good for. And that to know that it came from him is eye opening.
Yeah, he was great too. Not just a lot of announcers mentoring, but a lot of coaches. JB had a ton of friends, and he mentored so many people throughout the years as a coach, not just the high school but the college level as well. And he had great people that helped him get started and helped him mature as a coach. He wanted to pass that down, and he did. Nobody's done a better job of it than JB Haney.
Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. Well, with championship weekend upon us, we had to talk to my guy, Michael Knight from Prep Redzone. Well, Michael Knight, how's it going, my man?
It's going good. It's championship week, the first of two down in Edmond. So I'm looking forward to getting back to UCO and have a good 3 days of football there in Edmond.
Yeah, so we got a chance to talk about a lot of this with Don King earlier. Let's go ahead and get to the game that I'm kind of curious about to get your opinion on, and that's this McAllister Buffalo team facing off against the perennial power over there at Carl Albert. So, what's your thoughts on that 5A state championship game that we're looking at?
It's going to be good. I wish that Eric McCarty was going to be in the game for McAllister. But unfortunately, his season came to an end a couple weeks ago in the quarterfinals. But it didn't slow him down in the semifinals. They beat Bishop McGuinness in a game where they actually really dominated, and specifically the running game. Blaze Baugh, I hope I got that name right, their backup running back, he had a fantastic game, ran for over 250 yards, proved that he can be that marquee back for him. But going up against Carl Albert, you mentioned perennial power. They're looking for their 6th championship in the last 7 years. I joked with you guys beforehand. Last year was a down year for them. They lost in the semifinals, but this Carl Albert team is outstanding. They're led by their junior running back, Xavier Robinson, who has absolutely shattered the Carl Albert single-season rushing record. And you think about some of the names that have come through Carl Albert and played the running back position, and Xavier Robinson is now ahead of every single one of them in terms of most yards in a single season. And he did that like in week 10 or the first round of the playoffs, and he's just added to it. So the Titans definitely come in as the favorite, but I won't count out those McAllister Buffaloes.
A name everybody needs to remember, Chaz Bradley. Got a chance to watch
Yes.
them versus Collinsville, and this player is a dude. I'm telling you right now, he
Yeah.
defensive back, wide receiver. If they can find ways to get the ball in his hand, he could be a real X factor over there for the McAllister Buffaloes.
Yeah, and he's had an interesting career over the last couple of years. And for what he's been able to do this season, I'm happy for the kid because he's had such an up and down career the last few seasons. And for him to have the success this year, his senior year, it's great to see. He's one of the state's leaders in interceptions. Carl Albert doesn't throw the ball very much, so I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have there. But like you mentioned, his ability to stretch the defense as a wide receiver on offense and give the Buffaloes another weapon. You're absolutely right. Bradley is definitely a name to know, name that you need to watch on Saturday.
Yeah, I definitely hope he gets some looks at the next level. He is definitely a player who can play in the collegiate side of things. Speaking of collegiate side of things, I know over there at Prep Red Zone, you guys do a number of things, but one of the things you're going to be doing here soon is some 7-on-7 action and showcasing the talents of these players in the state of Oklahoma, giving them more exposure to get to that next level. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're excited to announce. We made the announcement during the week of Thanksgiving, actually, that we're going to run our first ever 7-on-7 tournament. 7-on-7 tournaments have been something that we've been covering for the last several years, and now combining our coverage along with the event side of our company, which on the Red Zone side, we've been running these showcase camps for the last 2 years. Over with Prep Hoops, our basketball site, we've been running basketball tournaments for the last 5-6 years, and it's been going incredibly well. So we're running our first ever event in late February, I believe the 25th and the 26th in Broken Arrow. We're going to have some great teams. They've already gotten with us, and they're on board. They're going to be coming out to Broken Arrow, and it's just another way for the kids to compete, to get better. We'd never, make the suggestion that, showing out in a 7-on-7 tournament is going to get you recruited, but it's going to get you on the radar because you're going to get covered. And that's one thing that we're going to be able to do that, there's plenty of 7-on-7 tournament organizations out there, but they're not going to cover the kids the way we're going to cover them from start to finish, from in tournament things on social media, from videos, pictures, interviews, things like that, to what we're going to be able to do after the tournament is over, telling you who shined brightest, who was playing outstanding ball over the weekend. And at the end of the day, these kids are going to go play somewhere, so it might as well be under our umbrella, where we can do a great job both giving them exposure and giving them good quality competition.
Go to yourview.com/OK for highlights, and check out our podcast and past episodes at yourview.com/OK. Remember, all of the best in Oklahoma, like the voice of the Jenks Trojans, Don King, make it to Ford High School Weekly. And also, we want to thank Don for helping us remember J.V. Haney, a great friend of Oklahoma high school sports. Well, until next time, thank you for watching, and I'm Deon Amade.
Ford High School Weekly has been brought to you by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma.